Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers is a weekly program designed to answer all your questions, including the ones you didn't even know you had, and to clarify the endless debates around the wonderful and fascinating world of sexuality. Join us for real talk about sex from two experts in the field. Richard and Larry Siegel have over 50 years of experience as sex therapists, educators, counselors, and researchers. The Siegel Brothers are recognized around the world as trainers of medical and mental health professionals.
Hello, and welcome to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. I'm Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
And I'm Ricky Siegel, a certified sex therapist and supervisor.
And my brother.
Cheers to that.
Toast to that, always. Indeed.
You. And cheers to you. Thank you for joining us this week.
Nice. We got for our ritual sake toast, we have a choya plum sake today.
Very
interesting.
Nice. Tastes like dessert.
Very interesting. I like the tartness to it. On top of the sweetness.
So, thank you for joining us. If you came over here from Facebook, we'd be grateful if you'd hit that like button and share. And while you're with us on YouTube, we'd be ever so grateful if you'd hit the subscribe button.
Definitely,
and help
please.
us spread the word.
Yes, help us grow.
So what's up for Sex Talk this evening?
We've got a couple of things going on. I'm really excited about our interview tonight. Mm-hmm. We are going to be speaking with Dr. Peter Canaris from our old stomping grounds.
Indeed, a fellow New Yorker from Long Island.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
And, I have to say, one of the things that I'm really glad to have the chance to talk to him about, and one of the things that I like about the work that he does, is that he's kind of in an area that has been a bone of contention with ours for a very long time.
Like 30 years?
Yeah, exactly. What some people refer to, and many of you have heard us talk about, actually rail against this idea of sex addiction, which, we kind of move more into the direction of out of control sexual behavior. There have been a couple of other kind of reconceptualizations of it. For some people, it's just tomato kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think with Peter, it's a real qualitative difference, and I really like his approach.
Yes.
And very, very helpful, I think. In addition to just liking it, it is something that we can work with. People can really, I think, get help by, because that typical addiction model, particularly that sex addiction model, I don't think is helpful at all. In fact, I have seen time and time again, people are actually, I hesitate to use the word hurt.
No, I use the word hurt. It's a very shaming model, like most 12-step kind of recovery. Mm-hmm. There's this cultural sense, the culture within 12-step communities, that the program is perfect. We just try to work it the best we can. And since nobody's perfect, we do it to the best of our ability. But there's still, we see this in treatment centers adopting the same kind of attitude.
Right.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with our treatment. You just didn't want it enough. Or you're not hitting your knees, or you're not working the steps, or it's not helpful.
Like this whole religious revival stuff.
Yeah.
Why didn't the miracle happen?
Right.
Somebody didn't believe.
You didn't believe strong enough. Is that religious revival, or is that Tinkerbell? I'm not
take
sure.
your pick. Is there really any distinction?
I get my fairy tales mixed up sometimes.
Yes, indeed.
But it's important that therapists be sex savvy enough and delicate and sensitive and positive to want to bring individuals and couples out of some kind of sexual pain and crisis and into that lover's dynamic we talk about all the time. Right. And it just doesn't happen with a model that says, oh, you're an addict and you're the partner of an addict, and those are going to be your new roles forever.
Right. Exactly. So, and again, I like your point that in a way it sort of robs people of their identity and forces a bad fit of a new identity on them.
Even with the old stalwart Alcoholics Anonymous, there's still very much. Remember, there was that movement in the early '90s. This bunch of radical guys that would go to meetings, especially where the old timers, the guys with like 60 years sober, were going, and they'd introduce themselves as recovered alcoholics instead of recovering, and people would get all up in a tizzy. Oh my God, you're in denial. You're going to relapse. Right. We never recover. Like,
that's right.
Where's the ability to? I mean, it's like saying you never recover from a broken leg.
Right.
You're going to be gimpy forever. No, bones heal.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
You could be someone that used to have a broken leg.
That's been so missing from that entire industry. In fact, not only is it missing, but there is a conscious refusal to accept anything positive.
Well,
you go into a 12-step meeting, right? One of the worst things you can say in any 12-step meeting is that you're doing fine. Right? That old classic. Ooh, that's the thing. You say fine. Ooh, you get that all the whisper. Ooh, because again, in recovery circles, in 12-step circles, as many of you know, FINE is an acronym, right? Fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. That's how positive feelings are treated in that world.
But if you say I'm a hot mess and I don't know which way is up, people will swarm around you and say, oh, keep coming back.
That's
we love
right.
you.
You're
great.
More hugs and more strokes than you're going to know what to do with. Right. So
it's not treatment. Right. There's support groups, and
that's
and I
right.
think
It's not treatment, and it's not therapy. Right? People have to really understand that. In fact, the analogy I often use is that when people, no matter what their issue is, whatever kind of 12-step group they attend, people have to realize they are actually stepping out of their recovery to go to these meetings. It's billed as part of their recovery, but it really isn't. An analogy I often use is a pit stop in like a NASCAR race, right? When a race car driver makes a pit stop, they are actually leaving the race. Now, hopefully they're recharging, refueling, refreshing, and then they go back out in the race. Well, people in recovery have to understand that recovery takes place out in the world. When they go to their 12-step meetings, it's like a pit stop.
That's good.
They're taking a break from their recovery, hopefully to recharge, refuel, refresh, but then go back out into their recovery.
That's good.
Right. Yeah. So, but again, that's an idea that's not very commonly accepted in those circles. And like you said, it's their business.
Yeah.
Right. So
we were really excited to talk with Dr. Canaris. So let's just take a quick break
go right to
and
it.
Get to it.
Yes, indeed.
I'm Rachel Needle, co-director of Modern Sex Therapy Institutes. And Modern Sex Therapy Institutes is a continuing education provider. We provide continuing education for medical and mental health professionals around the world. And we have over 140 archived workshops on our website, so please check them out at www.modernsextherapyinstitutes.com. Also, we have a number of certification programs, including sex therapy, couples in sex therapy, LGBTQIA affirmative therapy, alternative relationships, transgender mental health care, medical sexology, sex education, and sex counselor certifications. In addition, we offer a Ph.D. in clinical sexology. So please, again, go to our website, check out everything that we have to offer. A lot of our stuff is available solely online from the convenience of your own home or office. We do things live in 8 states and live via webinar as well.
Hello, thanks for joining us again. As promised, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Peter Canaris from our old stomping grounds in Long Island, New York. And I've known Peter for several years through one of our professional organizations, STAR, the Society for Sex Therapy and Research. But only as a fan and from a distance, I only knew about you and know that you've been in the field for a really long time, trained with a lot of the pioneers in New York when probably around the same time, maybe a little bit before my late mentor and supervisor, Susan Lee, and Helen Kaplan and Mike Perlman and Patricia Schiller over on the ASEC side. And didn't you also train with Albert Ellis, a hero to both of us?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you got some pedigree. But we've gotten to know each other more lately by both being on board with a new special interest group on OCSB, out of control sexual behavior, which has been a topic near and dear to us for going on 30 years, since we thrive on outrage and frustration. Must have a masochistic streak or something. And as we've already discussed in our earliest meetings of that special interest group, it's time that all of the warring factions in the mental health and medical field stop it. I found I really can't say enough good things, and want to plug the resources on your website. We'll put that up at the end of our interview so folks can go and find it and avail themselves of the resources. But we find that you tend to be a bit more tolerant than we are of the sex addiction label. And it's interesting because, you're a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, and you're a psychology professor. And you know how people tend to use psychologist and psychotherapist kind of interchangeably, but I feel like you guys speak a language that I do not. Even, I even taught classes for you at the nursing school. I taught intro psych classes, and I still don't feel like I speak the language. And I know it tends to be a bit more conservative at the larger APA level. So I would like to hear your angle at working in the among psychologists, and how you get them to conceptualize out of control sexual behavior in less than a pathological sex addiction disease kind of label. And I also want to hear about your couples model. I know you have a lot written and presented about cyber infidelity, and just this whole kind of 20-year mad dash we've had, as Marty Klein calls it, the experiment in progress of 24/7 on-demand high-def porn. And planes aren't falling out of the skies, or people running in the streets with their hair on fire, but it certainly has changed the world as we know it. So just pick up from there, if you would.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you very much for having me, guys. I'm very pleased to be able to talk about these subjects with you. I've known at least you for a while, Ricky, and respect your work, and just glad to have this opportunity.
Thanks. Good to have you.
Yeah.
My sort of ambition for many years in sex therapy as a psychologist has been to get psychologists more interested in sex therapy. And as a field, it's very interesting. I think the field over the years, while there's been a lot of leadership by psychology in terms of, at training institutions, at universities and whatnot, developing models, most of the foot soldier type work has been done by other professions, social work, mental health counseling, and the like. And that's fine. There's room for everyone and it's needed. But I've been kind of bugged by my profession as not really being very involved and that informed or that educated in that area that is so vital to psychology and mental health and human functioning.
One second. Peter, I just wanted to clarify something. The American Psychological Association still does not recognize sex therapy as a legitimate or a standalone modality. Is that correct?
Yes, and hence my my frustration and my effort to present on very sexuality topics, particularly to psychologists and training psychologists. So I've done a bunch of that over the years, and I enjoy doing that. And it's great because they love it. They love to be exposed to it because they realize psychologist education is lacking in that area. And what you're going to learn about it will be, not on the road to the Ph.D. typically, but it'll be in a postdoc or going to an institute, and postdoctoral education.
Right.
Which is important and great. But again, the point being the basic education is lacking in that regard.
And we see that, of course, in medicine, across all mental health and medical fields. And I usually leave psychologists alone because I'm exhausted from picking on the marriage and family therapist, because it's in their name, for crying out loud. How can you call yourself a marriage and family therapist and not talk about sex?
Yeah. I've picked up picking on the psychologists on my end, so we're covered it pretty good. But okay, so in any event, all right, so that brings us to the other topic you mentioned, which is the idea of sexual addiction. And that of course, as you guys know, has been sort of a popularly established concept.
Right.
The media will present, and it's well known, and it's sort of is an outgrowth of the general addiction model, the disease model, alcoholism, drug abuse, etc. And this sort of became the next behavioral
one of the new process addictions, right?
Yes, yes.
Gambling,
right,
overeating.
Actually, I've characterized it in probably the first chapter that we wrote on that, one of those taking sides chapter. But I've always kind of characterized it as a metaphor that's run amok.
Interesting.
Right? Because when you look at really the etiology of it,
yeah,
right, that's kind of how it started. And then it just took on a life of its own.
Well, we've lost the model part.
Yeah.
Right? Disease model doesn't mean it's actually a disease like diabetes or cancer, but we
yes.
Right.
Well, which
lost the hyphen.
In my thinking, okay, I'm influenced, for instance, back in my work with REBT, Albert Ellis, and all of that. One of the folks I became exposed to was a fellow, Albert Korzybski, sort of the father of general semantics, and sort of a popular expression that he used was the map is not the territory. And essentially, he talked about what's the utility of maps. They're useful only insofar as they allow you to get from point A to point B successfully where you want to go. So now we think in terms of science, we think in terms of psychology. What about our maps? What do we use? Okay, there's an addiction map that will suggest, what the territory looks like and how you navigate it. And there are other more psychologically based maps. Okay, and what do we try to do with our maps? Well, I think we want them to be utilitarian and useful, but we hope that they're based in science, that they're supported by research, okay, and also clinical experience, right?
Right.
So that's how we're going to build a map. Okay, and then feel that they are of substance. Okay, but they're still only a map. They're not the territory. It's only a way of navigating through a particular problem. All right. My feeling was that the map used in the addiction model was not that effective and also even harmful. Because it tended to, in my opinion, encourage shame, bog people down, be hurtful in many respects, be inaccurate in many respects, treating something as a disease that is not a disease in that regard. So psychologically, I felt that there were better maps to be developed and to be used. And that's the concept, Rick, that we talk about in terms of out of control sexual behavior and the various models of treatment that have been now developed and are developing to be able to approach it from a very respectful psychological point of view. Now, again, research, we're going to need more research on that. But I think we're certainly recognizing that there is a clinical utility to it. And in my belief, it is on the do no harm side, it is more useful and safer in that regard. Okay.
That's where I get the most upset, because particularly with couples, yes, I agree. The sex therapist to me doesn't like that kind of shaming or view of sexuality as broken or something to be not trusted or in fear of. But I've seen it do more damage to couples by just I guess in a nutshell, taking whatever crisis brings them in and freezing it into the new permanent. And once those labels, addict and partner of addict, are applied, as far as I'm concerned, the relationship is doomed unless there's some kind of sexological intervention.
But even with that, because to sort of use your analogy on that, it's also a way of defining the territory by the map, right? And planting flags like every inch of territory that they can put their feet on. And I think what it does, it creates these identities. And just to throw a little devil's advocate piece in there as well, there's a part of me that also questions even the framing. Right? And again, we know very well how the framing for out of control sexual behavior came about. In a way, it was almost, again, the cynical part of me is almost placating, some of the sex addiction model and concept. But I still see that as part of map defining territory, because and again, the thing that I sometimes get really stuck in with a lot of that is when we're talking about essentially volitional behavior, is it really out of control? When so many people say, I can't stop, where is that line between the inability and the unwillingness to change their behavior?
Yes. Yeah.
We talked about this. We talked about it in the first SIG meeting, that even the authors of the book, our friends Doug Braun Harvey and Mike Vigorito, acknowledge that there's an asterisk there. That unless we're talking about traumatic brain injury or Parkinson's patients really out of control with the dopaminergic meds. It's not literally out of control. Like nobody's in our waiting room going, "Help me, I can't stop."
Right. Or some sort of a comorbidity, as you're suggesting, like a bipolar disorder or something else that's driving the dementia. Something that's driving the behavior in that regard.
And taking that volitional piece out.
Yes.
Usually, it's more of a choice. Go ahead, Doc.
Here's the thing. Okay. What's the typical presentation? What's walking into our office? What do I find? My experience, and yours might be different. There's a guy, and it's typically a guy. Most commonly. Coming into the office, either alone or with his partner, coming in self-labeled or convinced I'm a sex addict.
Labeled.
Okay. And I need to be cured of this sex addiction. I need to overcome this sickness that I have. Usually very shamed, very guilty, feeling very down about himself, very bad, low self-esteem, etc. Right. The partner, again, if it's a heterosexual couple, very often is very upset, okay, and really is hoping that this doctor can help this pervert overcome his sickness and disease, and she's very angry very often, whatnot. Okay, what does this model do? Okay, well, it certainly is a heavy load for him to carry, but he knows at some level, if I take this rap, if I carry this, I got a shot at preserving my relationship.
Right.
Okay. What does it do for her? Well, you know what? It's probably not the 15 pounds I've put on since we got married. It's probably not that, I'm perimenopausal and I don't really feel like having sex that often. It's because he's sick.
Right.
All right. So once we get the cure for him, okay, things can be better. Okay. My ego is preserved. Okay. For him, his marriage is preserved. All right. And here I am sitting there. What do I do with that? Okay. Shall I say, you know what? This is a very weak model with no support. It's not in the DSM. There's no research to it, so forget about it. Let me teach you a different way. And then what they'll do, of course, is they'll look at me and they'll say, this guy, he came highly recommended, but I think he's an idiot. He really doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay. As soon as the husband or the male sees that she's displeased, I'm out of here. I'm not going with this guy. Mm-hmm. And she feels I really don't know what I'm talking about, because after all, she saw a report on the news and Oprah and the other thing, and this is what's happening. Mm-hmm. So that's one challenge. Okay. So now pragmatically, we talk to my openness to consider that model. Okay. Not to consider it as a model I'm going to follow, but one that I definitely have to encounter and deal with in some sort of effective way to see, am I able, if not through the front door, the side, or even the back, help this individual see,
not the back door. That's addiction.
Yeah.
That's too curvy.
We're not going to discuss my personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's the way.
He's going to start throwing Greek jokes at me.
I promise I won't. Put them in my head.
He's not of that bent.
But somewhat gently and indirectly, I need to help initiate these folks into an expanded or alternative way of conceptualizing of this problem, if I can. If not, using language that is acceptable to them. I don't have to be too strong in shifting them over, but we've got to kind of work it in such a way where we move away from that conceptualization, if possible, or towards something that I think is more consistent with good health and good functioning.
Yeah. One of my first attempts at a redirect is making the point that it's too easy to blame the porn, and we're really talking about masturbation. And I think part of the reason why we have this nationwide campaign, torches and pitchforks against porn, is that we're just not ready to talk about masturbation. So it's easier to have this grand distraction and blame porn for destroying relationships, instead of, as you said, more often than not, people turn to porn because they're in low sex or no sex relationships. And I've had guys in my office like angrily yelling at their wives, "You should be grateful I'm looking at porn and not out banging some strange, because I get nothing from you." Right. And that's a relationship issue that has to be addressed, not blaming the partner. I'm not saying, if you would have given him up more often, he wouldn't be out, but looking at the relationship dynamic that kind of allows all of these other behaviors, especially when they're subverted and underground.
Yeah. So it's like, what is the behavior symptomatic of? That has to be really looked at. That has to be identified. Because there's something I read on your website and just looking through some of your stuff as well. And part of your model, there's that whole part of your protocol in working with couples is that whole focus on the partner. But what I really, really do appreciate is that it's not a victim lens. And that's the automatic knee-jerk dynamic that's set up in these situations. He is the perpetrator, she is the victim.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, I think, Ricky's framing for that I've always really liked as well. And I think it's just so valuable that, pointing out how that dynamic kind of creates that parent-child dynamic. Where, again, usually he is like that kid trying to find his way back into mommy's good graces.
Yes.
And once that parental dynamic is set up, people have to understand we are biologically wired not to be erotically attracted to mommy.
Yes.
A supervisee had a case where the wife would wait for the husband to come home from work every night after night. She would be standing there. I always have the same image in my head. he would walk in the door, no hello, no kiss on the cheek, no how was work today. First words out of her mouth, day in and day out. Did you masturbate at work today? Let me see your phone.
Yeah.
And I can't tell me you can't picture the apron and the rolling pin, right?
Yeah.
Just that angry, critical parent image.
Yeah.
And how could they ever be lovers again?
Well, I mean, you're making both of you are making excellent points that I confronted in conceptualizing. How do you move forward with this? How do you move from that kind of a dynamic from what invariably becomes the cat and mouse game, where I think I have an essay on the website. I don't want to be the sex police. All right, where we have the person, very often the female partner, okay, who is checking, who is worried, and he's the bad little boy, and now did he, and it goes back and forth. Well, how do we get out of that one? I could say, well, don't you've got to learn how to trust. Don't worry about it. Don't focus on that. And then that'll be one session therapy. She'll be gone.
Right.
That I could clear a room out really fast. Okay, so I don't do that. Okay, what I've developed instead is a sense of, okay, instead of cat and mouse, what we got to do is find a way to collaborate, to create a therapeutic treatment team with the partners and the therapist involved, figuring out a way forward. Okay, it's not you're the enemy or you're the enemy. Okay, but we're going to need an enemy. God forbid it's the therapist. We don't want the therapist to be the enemy. Okay, so what's the enemy? Okay, the enemy initially is the technology, the threat that technology poses. All right, and I've talked about this in workshops and presentations. Again, despite my deceptively youthful appearance, I'm an old guy. So I talk about infidelity. Okay, in the 20th century, which I was around for in those days, and infidelity in the 21st century. In the 20th century, we were able, to focus on the flaws in the relationship. What are the dynamic problems in the relationship? We were able to look at the psychological problems that could be driving some of the problematic behaviors. We would look at all these things, and we still do, because they're all still relevant. Okay, but there's something different in the 21st century. All right, and that's what we have available to us sexually through technology, through the internet, through the handy dandy smartphone that's available, through social media, and put your seatbelts on, because we're right there with virtual reality, robotics, AI. The next triangle in our office is going to be with Harry, Betty, and Josephine, their servant robot.
I was going to say, there's the sex robot, the mistress robot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever had the opportunity to see this BBC series Humans. It's off the air now. It's filmed 3 seasons. It's off the air about a year. It is fantastic. It was also guided by a psychologist, by the way. Fantastic in terms of what the complications will be socially, societally, as we move forward with robotic and AI technology. As you might expect, the servant maid, who's a robot, android, whatever she was, wound up having an affair with the guy in the house. This led to a crisis, eventual divorce, and then it goes beyond that in terms of larger societal types of issues. But guys, look it up if it's still available. Humans, you'll love it all the way through.
Great.
Anyway, all right. So coming back to the idea of that collaboration, okay, Michael White, a narrative therapist from, I believe it was New Zealand, years ago, developed the concept of externalization of the problem. Okay, back to that enemy stuff I was talking about before. We're going to need it to deal with an enemy. Well, the enemy initially then that we need is the technology. Okay, we've got to band together and manage the technology in such a way that it no longer is this intrusive threat. And we're not going to do it in a cat and mouse way. We're going to do it with transparency. We're going to do it with openness, honesty, and the end of secrecy.
Yeah.
And you might not like this one. The temporary giving up of privacy. So in other words, that feeling that my partner's going to be up my ass, checking and all of that, she doesn't have to be.
Right.
I'm going to be so open. I'm going to seek her out because I wanted to see my phone and see what's going on.
Right.
For a period of time, I want to be able to put your mind at rest that I'm in control of this. We can work this together. And then as we go along, we're going to figure out what are the acceptable parameters of sexual behavior. What is your sexual wellness plan? Okay.
Yeah.
Is this what can we negotiate by way of what's the new relational contract going to look like? What's in bounds? What's out of bounds? And maybe we're going to hash that out a little bit to see what's acceptable. Do we actually want to still be together, or is it something that really we have different values or different ideas on where we want to go forward? But that essentially, I'm giving short shrift to the idea, but it's that sense of we're going to come together. It's not because he is this degenerate, perverted, addicted guy. It's because in our modern world, there are certain challenges and certain temptations that we need to be on top of. Okay, right. Because anything can, social media politically can be out of control. I mean, so many things can now invade our lives that going back to that 20th century, it just wasn't happening.
Right.
These are new challenges. So just a little bit of an idea of the approach.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
And I don't object to
Yeah.
that temporary, because it's empowering to both of them.
Exactly.
Right? They're a team again. They're as you said, co-creating, and it isn't this, not just parent-child, but cop and felon and warden and convict and everything else. That's
well, that imbalance status.
Yeah.
Right. So and that's what I like about that
and I'm not
too.
so crazy about those net nanny technologies either, but for the same reason.
Right.
What you're suggesting is a way of healing a relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between show me your phone and I want to show you my phone.
Oh,
and that is the empowering part. And that one piece, I think, makes such a difference.
It is such a critical, it seems like a small thing, but Larry, it is such a critical difference in doing that, because now it's like, because now, see, the other problem here now, another major aspect of this becomes what's happened. We have broken faith, lost trust. Okay. Well, you just have to trust me. Yeah, sure. I'm just going to trust you. Okay. Will I ever be able to trust again? What does that really mean? It means that our old model of trust, which was what I call the Disneyland model, the model of blind faith. Right. My beloved, I love you. I trust you implicitly. I love you. So now something happens that, oh my gosh, I can't do that anymore. If I go back to trust, I feel like a fool. And if I don't feel like a fool, then my girlfriend or my sister or someone's going to say, he's a liar. How can you go and trust him? So how are we going to trust again? How does that happen?
What does it even look like?
What does it even look like? And I have not seen, I know some of our prominent colleagues who've addressed this issue, I believe, poorly. Okay, basically, one very prominent colleague's approach is basically just suck it up. And you've got to, when you're so secure and strong within yourself, it's almost like, and the other is that another approach is sort of like, well, move off of that traditional model of what a relationship. This is 2020. We're doing open relationships. We're doing it differently now. Don't be so uptight. That's not going to work for a lot of, I'm a Long Island boy. I'm dealing with suburban people. Okay. There are actually a few of them left that are not transgendered yet. So I'm going to have something that can address a traditional relationship where this trust thing, the Disneyland trust, is gone now. What are we going to do? Enter the evidence-based model of trust. Okay. Meaning now we're going to go forward. You don't have to trust blindly. Okay. You're going to slowly develop faith and confidence based upon the behaviors we see going forward. All right. It's going to be very uncomfortable because you're going to have to let go a little bit of the side of the pool and swim, without.
And again, comfort is based on familiar. So when they're trying something new, we have to give them permission to be uncomfortable.
Yes. And through that discomfort, we begin to see, are you seeing differences that make a difference? Is he conducting himself in ways that inspires some confidence, in ways that now, I've had couples where, okay, she would be working out at the gym, he would be home doing his thing. Okay, well, now he's at the gym with her, not because she's got a leash on him, but because they're having a good time and he's enjoying it. Okay, so now I see that. I got to start to believe there's something different here. It's not the same old thing. The patterns are different. I could believe now to have some confidence and develop some what I'm calling evidence-based trust. Okay, but then we got to confront the awful reality that they're never going to let me in Disneyland again. I'm not going to get back to be able to that point where I can know I have total safety. I've got nothing. No, what we're going to do is we're going to say probabilistically, it's looking pretty good. I'm feeling it. It seems comfortable. We're rebuilding a realistic trust, and we move forward from there.
And it's breaking the delusion. And I think what you're saying is exactly why, for so many people, and we have together and individually had these conversations with like Esther Perel about how infidelity can often be the best thing that ever happened to that relationship, because it does force this new story to be written, this new way of being to be told. It breaks through the delusion that, the reality for most couples is, even when you talk about the blind faith, that would be an improvement because that would still be a conscious decision. Most people go into their relationships with expectations and assumptions, but nothing that's been agreed on, nothing that's been talked about. So in some ways, if they will allow it, this can be really the first time that they're forging this sort of path together.
Yeah. But that also, Larry, has to be something that develops. In other words, see, Esther, she's a lot prettier than I am, and far more eloquent. Okay, so if this guy goes in there explaining to this shattered woman and this scared guy how the infidelity was the greatest thing that could happen to them, because now they're going to forge a new. If I start going that way, I'm a dead man. I'm gone. We got to get there. All right. But we got to get there first by recovery, repair.
Sure. That's the process.
Working things up. And now we start to plant the seed that, let's look back, as horrible as this was to go through, there's some improvements here. So it's like something, post hoc, you sort of notice along the way, as opposed to present and pitch early on, because otherwise I'll be
right. No, I see it as part of the cartography.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Check him out. You're going to have to come back and join us in the new year and continue the
Yeah,
conversation.
please. Yeah.
This was too much fun and went by too quickly.
It's a pleasure. Thank
so,
you. It's been
thank
wonderful, and I enjoy being with you guys.
Same
good.
here. Thank you so much. It's what can be said.
It's nice to just have like-minded, kindred spirits who, we feel validated. We should probably just get some of these no-fap creepers, and we should get one of them on the show just to keep our edge, keep that outrage going.
Mm-hmm.
We have too many people that think like us, and we start drinking the Kool-Aid.
That's right.
Let's drink a toast
I'll drink
to
this Kool-Aid.
Dr. Canaris.
Yes, indeed.
Sake for you, dear friend. And we will have Peter back in the new year.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So definitely want to thank you, Doc, for joining us this week. And we want to thank all of you as well for joining us this week. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I hope everybody is surviving all the craziness and continuing to stay safe and distant.
Canceling all your Christmas plans.
Mm-hmm. Right? Or just kind of, celebrate on your own.
Yeah. Keep it small. Keep it safe.
Yeah, that's really, really important. All right, and you can still keep it sexy.
Hey.
All right, so small, safe, and sexy. A lot of you guys know what we're talking about there.
That'll do it for this week's Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us next Friday and every Friday at 7 p.m. East Coast time.
Thanks for watching Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us each week on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can also follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay on top of the latest developments in the ever-changing world of sex and sexuality.